Welcome back, everybody. This is Savage Takes. I'm here this time with two absolute all-stars in the Flesh and Blood community. We've got none other than Sam O'Byrne with us right here. You've seen him if you've watched any of Flesh and Blood's live streams at this point in time. The guy just teleports all around the world. And then, of course, because we needed a little bit of that competitive spice here on the channel because, me and Sam are kind of washed, not going to lie. We brought on Michael Feng, one of the top players in the world on the leaderboard right now. I can't remember what your place is. I want to say third or fourth right now for player of the year. And he's only won a handful of one of the biggest events in Flesh and Blood. But yeah, we're stacked today, guys. But how you guys doing? How you doing?
Yeah, I want to say among the three of us, we have a Pro Tour win. We have calling championship, multiple calling championships.
Oh, yeah, across the three of us.
Across the three of us, we're crushing it.
Yeah, dude, this is one of the most competitive rooms I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Ever. I do have a calling top 8, guys. All right,
you do.
Yeah. I do. On Reinar.
I know you do.
It's easy to forget that I was good at this game at one point in time, but not anymore. Not anymore.
I've won 3 armories. 4
Hell yeah,
actually,
brother!
So.
Incredible, dude.
I don't want to brag.
Incredible. All right, so we are in a very exciting time in Flesh and Blood. Right, we just had a brand new set, a Brute set, and a Guardian set. We just had a little bit of a Guardian buff right before that with Mastery Pack. We just got off the world premiere. We just saw our first ever calling post Super Slam. How you guys feeling about the zest in the air?
Excited. I mean, there's just even that calling is kind of like just that first taste of what Super Slam is kind of bringing to us. And I don't know, at least for me, from a competitive standpoint, there's still a lot of testing and a lot of heroes I want to try out that I just didn't have enough time to do everything I wanted to do by Shizuoka.
Yeah. So. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think just from a general competitive standpoint, there's a lot people are very much figuring out. I mean, Slippy, dude. Slippy was half of Marionette's representation at this event. What? Yeah. I mean, maybe that's just going to be the thing now and no one wants to play Slippy anymore, but that was shocking to me. There were 4 Slippies in that room.
Crazy.
What? That was one of the most represented decks for months. Yep. And I think that's one signpost of the fact that people are very much still figuring things out. I think the KO thing is hilarious because it was the classic Flesh and Blood early format. No one's talking about it, but everyone's talking about it. It's got to be the best deck in the room. And so I think a lot of people just registered it without necessarily knowing what they were doing. They were just well, I have to play this. I'm being told by podcasts that this is the best deck. But it might take a little bit of time of people actually figuring out the version of the KO list that's the best and actually getting reps on it. It's not actually just play Cast Bones and win. Right. Who knows if you're even supposed to play Cast Bones anymore.
KO got the most Majestics and that new legendary arm, and it just felt like the easiest, biggest winner from Super Slam.
For sure.
And of course, a lot of people already have had the KO Armory deck, have had access to it. Maybe players from last year who played it when KO was just fresh from heavy hitters. So not actually a surprise to me that KO was the most represented hero at calling Shizuoka, for example. But with the rise of Earth heroes and just the nature of KO by itself, wasn't too surprised also that he didn't really convert well. KO is also just a hero that I don't know. I was asked by a few friends, a little bit more casual players, for the calling. What was a hero that they would recommend me to play, or I would recommend them to play if they wanted to really, not put too much time into it, but still have a competitive chance, so to speak. And that was a hero that I ended up recommending. And I think, more than, at least some of those players were also kind of in that boat that ultimately registered KO. Much easier to play than Gravy Bones, for example.
Yeah, just small shout out to myself there, playing a complicated deck. No big deal, whatever. I mean, KO is a super low to the floor hero, right? Even when he wasn't performing very well, we could see ProQuest over ProQuest, RTN over RTN. He had quite a lot of points just passively generated because he's an easy to play hero, low to the floor, relatively cheap to get into. So yeah, man. I mean, he also ate pretty good in this Super Slam set. Probably the best of all of the brutes. At some level.
That deck is going to be good. It's just going to be finding the best list, people getting
Yeah.
reps. Like people are gonna. I definitely some people are gonna look at those results from Shizuoka and be like, oh, okay, the deck is not real, the deck is not good, and then they're just gonna get absolutely blasted at a ProQuest. You know, like the deck is definitely good. It's just I think taking a little more refinement and a little more time for people to actually get good at the deck again. You know,
like I have a feeling that he's gonna LL during ProQuest season. And
I think there's a real chance. Yeah.
And that's going to be a big shakeup to our world's meta if that happens, right? Like he's a significant percent of the meta right now.
And Mandible Claw. I mean, that's
I can't wait actually. The next generation of brute design where we're not all the same claw blood rush machine. That's what I've been waiting for that for a while. So yeah, I've been waiting for it for a while. All right. Well, so you were just in the calling, right? You were there on the floor. You were touching it. You were interacting. You were. Is there anything that took you by surprise? You know, or any call outs? Any of the games you played? I don't know if you hit a Pallades or anything along those lines. But was there a matchup where you were like, this deck's a little bit more real than I gave it credit for?
I didn't hit a Pallades, but I know from jamming games and some Talishar games that Pallades. I really think Pallades is real. I don't think. I think there was maybe like one.
There was one that went. I'm pretty sure one went X and 3. I'm pretty sure she went X and 3.
That's pretty sick. I think she's
maybe X and 4.
She's the most excited I've been about Guardian in my whole life. And I played Starbo, but that's because like I really never during Starbo era thought that I was playing a Guardian. I was playing like a big
Michael, you won a Pro Tour on Oldhim.
But I wasn't that excited about playing Oldhim.
Is anybody excited about playing
one
Guardian?
of us, bro? One of us.
I sympathize a lot with people who didn't like Oldhim, who felt like Oldhim was oppressive or boring to play. Like all of those things, I was like, I feel you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just playing this guy because I want to win games.
Yeah.
Totally. Like an armory, I don't really want to play this guy. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm playing this guy because. Oh no! I mean that's a whole separate conversation. Okay. I love playing Gravy, and I think that he's also kind of oppressive, but for very few heroes, I feel like it's a boring matchup. It's not the same as Oldhim where you don't really get to do the things you want to do. In fact, that's one of the Gravy's biggest weakest points. He doesn't really get to say, "Hey, you can't do that." You get to do pretty much whatever you want. You just have to make the right decisions a lot of times. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Back to calling Shizuoka. I really wasn't. Not too many surprises this time. A lot of the meta felt roughly what we thought it was. One thing about the Japanese meta are two heroes in particular we expected more of, and this is partly from talking with some of the locals and from seeing some of their early tournaments. There was actually kind of like a 60-person post Super Saiyan tournament that I believe Shoma won with Ira that had like three or four Syndras in the top 8, no Gravy Bones, and I think 2 Earth Heroes and maybe a Brute as well. So actually relatively similar to calling Shizuoka's top 8, but that's kind of what we expected. We expected a lot of Syndra, a lot of Earth Heroes, a decent amount of Gravy Bones, and a bunch of Brutes. Unsure what type of flavor. We assumed probably KO, and that's ended up being what it was. But Reinar is a real deck too. I mean, I know Eugene's been playing that guy for a really long time, but it's just it's hard to explain what I want to say, but it's like that boiling frog analogy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's just like the class is getting hotter and hotter, especially Reinar. It's just, you can't give him that many. It's like every single card that was in the deck 2 years ago is no longer in the deck. Like, because I played Reinar at a Battle Hardened too. I mean, I never was brave enough to bring him to a calling and make top 8, but I did bring him to a Battle Hardened because I was just kind of like tired of the meta. I wanted to play something different, and I was playing cards like Yellow Smash Instinct.
Oh my god!
And now it's just like the deck is just completely different. Like all the cards are better than Yellow Smash Instinct. And that's great.
I started
right?
I started deck building again because I haven't been able to play competitively after the Savage Feats acquisition and stuff like that. So I was jumping back into it.
By the way.
Thank you. And I jumped back in. I put the blues and the yellows in the list, which is how I normally start. Like get the bad out of the way, and I was like, "There's more than 60 cards in here. What the heck is going on?" There's so many actual options for him now, and for brutes in general, right? Like, and there's a couple new archetypes are kind of opening up with like with generic go again blues and reds and yellows. Like, I don't know, man. Brute's got a lot of exploring to do because you know, they're more complicated than a lot of people give them credit for.
Oh yeah.
And it's all about deck building for them. It's selecting your risk to reward ratio and finding your correct amount of sixes, your correct amount of blues, your correct amount of all that kind of fun stuff. Yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah. In actual gameplay, when you watch a lot of Brute players play, it seems like unga bunga. But I feel like I do agree with you. There's so much more nuance and a lot of planning, especially with Rhinar. Rhinar, sometimes you're a combo deck, sometimes you're a value deck, and sometimes you kind of have to be both because you don't know what you have to be. And I really enjoy that aspect of him.
Yeah. So we just finished a world premiere, right? So we got to see the draft heroes in action for the first time. People are touching the cards. Super Slime is now pretty much out, right? Like we're out there touching everything, making deck lists. So
you keep describing people playing FAB as touching
man,
cards. We're out here just touching everything.
I know, dude. I'm kind of getting stuck, but you know, whatever, dude. I'm a touchy-feely guy. I'm a touchy-feely guy. I'm a hug giver. All right. We got our revered versus reviled heroes, right? And we have a couple of very interesting design decisions, like a little bit of a new frontier for Flesh and Blood, right? We got 5 intellect heroes. We got 3 intellect heroes. We have a like assassin brute, and then of course we got a massive bump to Guardian overall. How do you guys feel about like Super Slam as a set and its meta impact and these kind of like interesting, I don't know, design constraints, right? Like what is the value calculation for 5 intellect versus 3, you know?
Wow. Lyeth, 5 intellect. Yeah, that's never been done before. I mean, Tough Nut, 3 intellect, Data Doll in Blitz has been around for a bit. But it's really cool. You know, like Lyeth has kind of like a downside, right? To balance the fact that he has 5 intellect and Tough Nut somewhat has like an upside of being 3 intellect. I think that is the most exciting part of this set for me. It's like if I were to tell a new player, or sorry, not a new player, a returning player, a player who's played before, taken a break, doesn't know anything about anything really. That's like the first thing I would tell them about this set. Hey, it has a 5 intellect hero and a 3 intellect hero. And it has brutes and guardians and a ton of expansion slot cards. So those are like the elevator pitch of the set to kind of a returning player. It feels exciting. I've done a lot of testing with Lyeth especially. I've been struggling to create a deck that what's the best can do both, can be kind of proactive and have a proactive game plan and really try to spend the entire hand and also be able to maybe block against some heroes. I've been having a hard time balancing that. I can definitely make a really pretty decent fatigue style version of Lyeth. Lots of cards that, you know, Oasis Respite, for example, you can try to block with. But I struggle. Actually, not even a struggle. It's like laughable, the matchup, what it looks like into Gravy Bones when you aren't really spending your full hand. But the hero is extremely fun, and I've you know, it's kind of like every set gives you these puzzles, and that's one of those puzzles that I really want to kind of tinker around with more.
Yeah, he seems at first glance like very, very difficult to build correctly because you're going so wide every turn with that many cards. You're balancing like, how do I actually present damage in an effective way instead of just swinging your hammer for 2, you know? And then you also are challenged at the same time with like, how do you actually defend big turns? So I think he's really complicated. I feel like the heroes in this set, they present such interesting questions. And like, what's your true value you're trying to get per card? Because if you can manage to squeeze out 4 value per card, you're going to win every single game forever.
Oh yeah.
But that's a very difficult thing to accomplish with him, you know?
And there's a lot of tension too because the suspense auras that we Guardian finally got. I mean, compared to heavy hitters, these suspense auras are block 3s and don't cost an action point. It's crazy, but in Lyeth they're never block 3s because they're somehow instants, right? Like, so there's like all this like interesting tension with deck design, and it's been fun. It's been kind of as you know, a more enfranchised player, it's kind of like refreshing because all of the cards you kind of have to do a different take on it. Like they're no longer like there's cards that are wounding blow that are worth 4 on offense, 3 on defense. you kind of have to take a new lens at every single card and try to find the gems in the rough, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been the exciting part of Lyeth.
Yeah. What about you, Sam? Who are you brewing in Super Slime right now?
Oh, dude. Well, we were talking about this before we recorded, but Ethan got me on the RKO train, which is the deck that I thought by far, I thought it would be worse than Tough Nut. And I was like, Tough Nut only draws 3 cards. Like, I was like, what the hell is this deck supposed to do? Like, come on.
What the hell?
You're spending 4 resources on this ability. Like, how, whatever. But it's so fun, and it's like totally different, and ironically, it does a lot of things that I like. And I'm like, damn, I really am the bad guy. Like, I really am the baddie. Like, I love to pummel my shit, you know, and I love the life gain and trying to stay higher, and the mocking blow. It's just
mocking
ridiculous.
blow.
Yeah, the card's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
What a card.
But yeah, I think we've had a number of sets in a row now that have had decks come out that immediately impact the metagame. You know, we've had even like Aurora, Florian, in Rosetta. Both were right there. Okay. You could play them, pretty easy to build a good version of that could take you to a calling. Syndra won the first 2 callings. Gravy Bones second at Nationals and was immediately so impactful.
One battle hardened that day.
Yeah. So it's you know, Super Slam, it doesn't surprise me at all that these heroes did not come out of the gate like, oh, immediately there's one sniffing top 8, because they're so unique and so different than anything Flesh and Blood has ever done. Yeah. So like, nobody knows what the right way to build, honestly, any of these 3 heroes are yet, because they're completely unique. I mean, even look at the limited set, right? There's no weapons. Like everyone was like, what do you want from us? Like, how am I supposed to play this? You had to figure it out over the weekend. And, you know, so it didn't surprise me at all. And I think it's nice also for a card game to not have every set be, you need to buy into or learn to play one of these heroes because it's going to immediately be a top 8 competitor. I'd absolutely think these decks over time, and maybe not too long of a time, could be that type of a deck and those type of competitive experiences. But it doesn't surprise me at all that it's not ripping out the gate like these last 3 sets, because you've had 2 easy to build Rune Blades. You've had Syndra, which was definitely like, people knew how to build that early, a good version of that early, right? And then Gravy Bones, like, those cards are just ridiculous. So of course that's going to be strong. And it's, even those decks were different than they are now, you know? Yeah.
So the battle, I mean, like, I guess playing in paper, because I think you guys actually both did at this point in time, played some Super Slam draft and limited. How does the no weapon kind of evolve the format, or like how does that impact your game plan?
Not very much.
No?
Not kidding.
I was like, damn, Sam, all right, spill it.
It's crazy.
It's made the whole game plan feel more holistic.
Okay.
Even from turn 0. We've done some of the math, at least, especially in matchups that often go to fatigue. So this is Tough Nut Mirror.
Yeah.
Actually, anytime Tough Nut's involved. It's like correct sometimes to take a point of damage on the first turn if your opponent's attacking for 7, just a block 6. Just because if you give that one more card, you actually kind of lost 2 value of your deck. There's little things like that. There's prioritization of, getting the most bang from your buck, the most damage, deck damage at least, in fatigue games. But of course that tension's always balanced with the fact that sometimes you just die. Sometimes you play inefficiently like that because you want to keep an extra card in your deck. And you take an extra point here, an extra point there. And before you know it, I mean, Flesh and Blood, especially in Limited, is a game of inches and a game of, really eking out value here and there and every single turn. That extra point or 2 really starts adding up and you could just lose because of that. So always trying to balance that seems like a really cool tension that we have. And not having a weapon also means you really have to plan your turns in a way where if you want to attack, you need an attack action.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just having a pitch card. You just need any attack action sometimes. Like a blue Feisty Locals, which of course is insane in Reviled KO. It still takes a card when you're playing any of the other heroes. And just cards like Blue Mocking Blow, just any card that's an attack action. Sometimes you just have to make sure you have those guys instead of like, I don't know, like Cheers or Booze. non-attack actions that are extremely good, do block 3, but don't do any damage to your opponent. So that's kind of like the cool tension I've enjoyed.
All right, so another thing Super Slam has brought us is the largest expansion slot of all time, right? Of any set, every hero almost in the game is getting a slight nudge in the right direction. I mean, we saw Olympia getting an entire themed armor set, which is kind of sick. Is it going to help them? Unsure, but you know, what do you guys? Is there any call outs that you guys really think are going to have this huge impact for the Road to Worlds right now?
Overcrowded. I don't know. That's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
I think moving forward for eternity of Flesh and Blood design, card design, deck design, every single deck I build, I will start by asking the question: can this card support overcrowded? Does it make overcrowded good? Because when overcrowded is at all relevant, it's insane. Like if you can consistently make that 2 block value into 4, it's just such a good card. It's a blue that you can tuck in your arsenal from a ponder. If your opponent plays Codex Frailty, it's nice. It's also a blue card that just attacks if you need to attack for maybe 2 or 3 damage, hopefully. That's to me just the card that Super Slam will, the first card I think of when I think of Super Slam now. And just a note on that, and I've talked to a bunch of people who've done a lot of case openings, who sell singles. This card feels like it's almost I wouldn't say overprinted, but it shows up at a higher frequency than the other Majestics. And I feel like whoever in LSS made that decision, and then I think this is like, we've seen enough data, like a significant amount of cases have been opened where this seems like the case. And I just want to give a shout out to whoever in LSS made that possible, because like these type of generic Majestics would exactly be the ones that would be really expensive, like the CNC or an E-Strike. And I feel like they kind of knew that, and they've kind of gone ahead of that and already made it quite available. I mean, the card is like sitting at $10, I think, on TCG Player here in the US, and that's super reasonable. I think that's super reasonable for a Majestic staple. So that card, definitely my number 1 pick for the set. But if you were to ask me what has been making the most impact on the current meta, at least in Shizuoka, it seems like Light Up the Leaves. Just giving Verdance the density of enough arcane spells. And just to give you an anecdote, I mean, when we used to play Gravy Bones into Verdance, like more than AB1 just seemed kind of silly. Didn't matter if you went first or second. But now, not having AB2, we switched the boots to AB2, it feels like there's a real chance Gravy loses. You often take like, if you're an AB1 at least, the math of you taking 5 arcane damage from a Burn Bear or a Light Up the Leaves is quite high. I think it's like 40%. And then you take 1 more damage from the Waning Moon. So it's pretty significant. It's changed how we view that matchup. It's changed how Verdants have built their decks. Millennium Tree is back. 9 Arcane is just, you can't ignore 9 Arcane that often.
No.
Right? Like there's 9 Arcane on your turn, on the Verdance's turn, and then there's a threat of 9 Arcane on their turn because of Waning Moon plus Stormstrider. So Hero has kind of just completely changed. I mean, Burn Bear was like the first step, but now we're getting that consistency. Now it's not just a fluke to be able to send a 3 resource 6, which is just, these type of cards just didn't exist. And Light Up the Leaves is an Earth card. So for most matchups, it's just almost strictly better than Burn Bear. So pretty sizable upgrade for the Hero. But yeah, I don't want to do all the talking. Sam, you got some favorite cards from the set?
I do have some favorite cards, but unfortunately, brother, people are way more interested in your thoughts on the meta. I'll support.
Well, I'm interested too.
Oh man. Yeah.
But 31 expansion slots, right? Like I thought it was gonna be, I thought there were gonna be more expansion cards, but you know, when I actually broke it down, of these 31, 6 are reprints. So Felling of the Crown, New Horizon, Flick Knives, and 4 of them are the Armory Deck Pallades like armor sets. And then 4 of them, of course, are Olympia cards, which I kind of group as one. So that's about like 11 cards. 14 of those cards are kind of, you know, not exactly unique reprints for different heroes. So there's really 17 unique reprints and a set of armor for Olympia. So about like 18 true cards from a competitive player standpoint. But still, that's way more than any other set, right? That's
totally
the thing that I equate these expansion slots with now, and has been true even when they were first released way back when. When was the first one? I just remember
I want
Dromai getting
it's the
tone.
carnival slot. It was
Ah,
is the carnival
technically,
slot.
No.
yeah, we could say
Well-
Everfest was a supplementary set.
Well, it
The
was
whole thing was an
supplemental set, yeah.
expansion. Yeah.
Well, it was called the
Um,
carnival slot, right?
Well, there was a carnival slot that was like a potion. When did Tome? I think Bright Lights.
Bright Lights, I think, yeah, was the
Yeah,
beginning
because
of the
they knew
expansion slot.
they
Yeah.
knew that they would, want to make people who
Yeah.
played other classes have interest in the set.
We can thank Bright
Um,
Lights for something.
Yeah. Well, Bright Lights reprinted Tunic
Yeah.
for the third time,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
to me that was a big deal. I remember I had friends who were coming from Magic, and they came during Bright Lights, which was not ideal. It wasn't the best set to get new players in. Even though there was Crack Shuffle play at that time, I was actually a little frustrated at the time because I thought Crack Shuffle play was notoriously difficult. I was trying to explain to someone what Crack Shuffle play was, and then I would say cards like, I would say something like boost, and they'd be like, what's boost? And I'd be like, ooh, and then I would say an item or a steam counter, and these are all like things that like, like if they were like, yeah, I played the Ira Welcome deck, but they had none of these things.
Oh yeah, steam counters too by themselves kind of complicated for new.
Yeah. From Magic, the players weren't as confused, but I had a Yu-Gi-Oh player who it took a little bit of like massaging and adjusting to the game. But yeah, what was I talking about? Oh, expansion slots. So I mean, so the math comes out to about like 17 unique cards plus a set of 4 for Olympia. And these all being Majestics, that's more than what Everfest provided, basically, in terms of like pure Majestic power level cards. Not all of these are not all like, they're not all the same.
They're not all bangers looking at Riptide, but whatever.
Well, I actually like
I do too.
Take the Bait. I think that is the coolest card we've had in a really long time.
Yeah.
Just in terms of design, it makes it's just kind of cool trying to give a bait token to Kano and the tension, because like when you're a Rhino, you're like intimidate. Kano's like that could be pretty bad, but maybe if you intimidate the right one, I could still go off. Bait token just says, all right, good luck, buddy. Like you're gonna be blocking this turn, or you're not blocking, or I don't know, but I'm not dying because you got bait.
You got baited. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it's also a huge one for the community overall, I do believe. But like the reprinting of cards is also equally important. I mean, the meta is always important, competitive is always important, but like if you want to play competitively, you need cards. And quite a few of the reprints in this set are those big ticket items that have been very notoriously difficult to get, very expensive, that came from very old sets. Right. So I really like the strategy, especially with like some of those, like, I don't know, they're quite short printed, but Felling of the Crown and Plow Under were pretty hard to find. Those are $30 Majestics, $40 Majestics at some point in time. 50, yeah. So I think it's a huge win for the community to be able to give those kind of things back. And also the art on the reprint, like New Horizon, looks pretty sick. Not gonna lie, looks pretty good.
I like it. I love the Flick Knives art.
Yeah.
It just looks so cool. It looks so thematic and especially since Syndra's the main hero that's playing Flick Knives.
Iswardi's the GOAT, bro. Iswardi plays Fab. Iswardi like puts stuff into his art, for the Fab players. It's really important. I've had a lot of friends and people in Discords just like, it's just been so lovely to see them celebrating these reprints and just, I just see all these messages being like, I can get New Horizons now. I'm gonna play Riptide. I've been wanting to play Riptide for months. Oh, Flick Knives. I'm gonna play Syndra. Like a lot of the people that we get to interact with all the time are they just get it all. They just super enfranchised, love Fab, play whatever. But like, man, when I started, it took me 9 months to go to my LGS to play Fab, because I was so broke that I needed all that time to get enough cards, because I'm competitive and I'm like, I don't want to show up without CNCs. I don't want to show up without Tunic. Like, I don't want to lose because you have Tunic and I don't. Like, that's, and not that is exactly how it works, but that's how my brain was. And there are people out there who are like, I don't want to show up without the number one deck I can bring. And to continue to allow for more people to have more accessible cards. It's been really great to see. It's been really great.
That's how you sniff out new blood, though. You know what I mean? Like Jude Cornette's one of my locals. He showed up on Drill My with no legendary equipment, a bunch of like just Garbo cards in there. And I'm explaining explaining during the armory how to play. And as I'm explaining, I'm like, okay, I'm going to kind of do this. He starts beating me. And I'm like, oh God, all right. So I got to stop. But you're gonna be nuts, dude. Like, and now look, he's on the player leaderboards. You know, like
he is nuts.
Guys,
really
the guy's nuts. But you can tell when they're starting to beat you around with no legendary equipment pieces. You know. Yeah. All right, cool. So Super Slam, big impact, fun, new mechanics. Really excited to keep brewing on my brute heroes here. But now let's talk about the road to Worlds, right? We just had our first CC event since Super Slam's release, and we saw a big shakeup. Those bans and restricted announcements kind of came in. People were expecting Gravy to be bad, and Michael Feng over here showed us that that's not necessarily true. Several others also showed us that it's not true. People were really hyping up KO, thinking he's going to be this unkillable monster. His day 2 conversion rate goes into the floor. A lot of really interesting stories, but we did end up with a super healthy top 8 from my perspective. A lot of heroes in there. 2 brutes representing, and one of them is Reinar. Yep. What's your guys' take from the weekend?
I'll let you go first.
Well, if we look at the day 2 conversion, the most played heroes, besides KO, of course, were often also the most played heroes in day 2.
Of course.
And we're, with exception of Florian, which I'll talk about in a sec, we're also the heroes that basically ended up being represented in the top 8. So a lot of that kind of makes sense. There was, of course, a couple heroes that Marionette, of course, being 9th, really sad for, I think it's pronounced Gaichi, his name. Really cool guy. Won on stream in the last round and not making top 8. That's always or second to the last round, I believe. Always feels bad. I think it's quite healthy in the sense that there's a lot of heroes being represented, and it does feel like you have way more than 3 heroes that are. There's not like really a triangle meta. There seems to be more of like I've been kind of calling it a pentagon meta almost, like so to speak. Yeah. There's this like dynamic of like each hero basically has 2 heroes that kind of want to play into, and 2 heroes that don't want to play into, is kind of how it feels. That's why I've been calling it kind of like a pentagon. And so while I do feel like it, there's lots of opportunity out there. There's lots of heroes you can play. This type of meta has kind of frustrating elements also for a competitive player, because I do feel like in some way I am trying to do this gem lottery system where I'm like, I can only afford to play against Syndra or Acilio, as Gravy Bones at least, X amount of times, because I'm not expected. I could maybe eke out a win, and I think against Syndra maybe it's like 1 in 3, and against Acilio I'm expecting to win like 1 in 5 games maybe.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what the actual stats show about that, but those are just kind of the harder matchups, the matchups that I both just don't want to see, or if I do see, I'm really not expecting to win. And you only get like 2 losses, really, like 3 maybe, in these callings to if you want to make top cut. And I feel like all of the heroes have 2 heroes that really have their name, have their calling card on them. If you're playing an Earth hero, you really don't want to play Gravy Bones, for example. And most of the time, Kano is also not a hero you want to see. And for most players, I feel like the current meta has become kind of like that. I think actually, ironically, and I don't know how, maybe it's funny, maybe it's not, I think KO is the one hero that just says, I don't know what you're playing, I don't care.
I don't care.
My win rate into you is about the same no matter what you're doing, really.
Pretty much, dude.
But if you're not playing KO, it just feels like you just have a couple of heroes you really don't want to play against. And I think, is that healthy or not healthy? I'm not sure. Sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes it's not frustrating. Sometimes it feels really good if either A, you just dodge. You never hit an Acilio. I didn't play any Acilios at Shizuoka, and that was really nice for me. Or you do hit the Acilio or your bad matchup and you win, you prevail, and that feels awesome. So, it's a give or take. It's a give and take. And the meta's not always been like this. But I
Yeah, of
found
course.
that the more almost like open it is, it's just the sheer fact that there's so many heroes, you're gonna have a couple of heroes that are bad for your hero. That's just how it's been.
Yeah.
When it's been more narrow, it's usually like 3 heroes or 2 or 3 heroes that just like their only bad matchups are another one of the 3.
Yeah.
And that's not really like the case right now. You have some heroes that like I have a bad matchup into X, but X is like 3% of the meta, so I just gotta dodge it. And that's kind of like the more mentality of at least how I've been seeing these events.
Yeah, I actually do have a little bit of the stats behind on my screen right here that I kind of ran pre this conversation. And
Okay.
like the pattern you're saying is actually, yeah, really pretty much true, right? Gravy's got bad win rates in the Dory, Syndra, and Dash IO, interestingly.
Yep.
Syndra is actually really losing to the field. I would say the non-pyramid. It's Assassin, Dory, and Victor that really ate up all of the Syndras. Verdance is getting creamed by your boy Gravy and Prism. And then who was our last one? KO. KO's actually getting, yeah, it's Gravy and Florian that are keeping him down. Horrible win rates into Florian and Gravy Bones. So it's, yeah, you're right. This is kind of like this circle where they're all eating each other. And Syndra's just hoping to not run into the not meta.
Yeah. No, but actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I woke up on Sunday at Shizuoka and I was looking at it's awesome now. Now this, like, it used to be you couldn't even see the standings, or there'd just be a picture of the paper standings from the day before. But now you get the standings round by round, of course, and you get each of their heroes.
Yep.
And I was like, oh no. Like, I remember there were 4 Syndras in my bracket, 2 Asilios, 2 Kanos, and I was like, it's cursed. And of course I paired into a Syndra immediately.
Yeah.
And I was thinking when I was looking at that meta, I was like, there's Charlie on Victor. And I'm trying to think of any other hero. Maybe some of the Fangs. Was there even a Fang that made day 2? I think there was like a couple.
There's 2.
And maybe the Pallades, but they were so far, they were already in the X2 bracket. So I was rooming with Peitung Liao, who a Taiwanese guy. He made the first Worlds top 8. And he was on Syndra, and of course, you know, at night he's like joking, I just want to pair you tomorrow. I'm like, I would like to not pair you tomorrow. But I was telling him, man, this meta looks so good for you. Truly. Is anyone on this list like something you want to play? And he's like going all the way. He starts at Charlie and goes, I don't want to play Charlie. Charlie's the victor. And then just goes down the list and goes like, nah, I think I'm good. I don't mind playing any of these. Of course, he like pairs into the mirror and loses the mirror, which of course, you know, he's got to look at the man in the mirror, you know, like
you forgot about yourself. You know?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's I think that's it's really cool because Central also ended up taking down the tournament.
Yeah,
right? Like,
it's
you can see that
the data is so interesting to track if you like really get into it. And we're in the new age of FAB. This hasn't been available to us for very long. These matchup results, all that kind of stuff. So like we're getting a little bit more data driven, analytical in our deck building and all that kind of stuff. There is one standout deck that I think it warrants a conversation because just the numbers that were put up, and that is Dash IO, right? Very few people picked it. Extremely high conversion rate in the day 2. 60% of them converted the day 2. And if you look at their win rate across the entire tournament, it is the highest win rate deck by a significant margin, right? Something around 64% if you calculate every single match that was played. Now, of course, none of them made top 8 because they do have an absolutely horrific Florian matchup. But that deck stood out to me as maybe something worth diving into if you're a Dash fan out there, because I mean, the numbers are just nuts. And it seems like they really are just trying to dodge the green, green rune blade, I guess, not the green man. There's a lot of green men running around the field right now, but Florian. Yeah, very interesting.
And maybe to an extent also the lone victor, but yeah, Dash.io. Sure. I jokingly call Dash.io the original Necromancer, the original Gravy Bones. Really similar mechanics. I mean, the compass, you look at the top. Dash.io is just constantly looking at the top. I noticed this first because when High Seas first came out, Brody fell in love with Gravy Bones. And I was like, this is so abnormal. Like I played Enigma, I played Prism, I played Dromai. Brody's not really like, he never really played Enigma, actually. Yeah. And I was so surprised. I was like, Brody, you playing a board state deck? But then I broke it down more and I was like, wait, no, you're playing a deck that functionally has 5 intellect, cannot fatigue anybody, has a bunch of cards in your deck that can't block, kind of like items, and just happens to play allies, right? Like that's not really what Brody was playing Gravy Bones for, and so that's why I, Dash IO, Gravy Bones, like I was using Dash IO sleeves during the tournament because people were asking why. I was like, well, they're just like the same hero to me. But both have that same concept of, you're kind of playing a 5 intellect hero. Dash IO particularly is kind of in an interesting spot where her damage output is higher than pretty much any other hero right now. Like we don't really have that type of offensive overlap, I think is what James White was calling it.
Yeah.
We don't have that much anymore. It's really Acilio and Dash IO that really can have these like pushing 30 damage turns.
Yeah.
Like we're kind of in a mid-range fiesta of a meta right now. Most heroes, I mean, Syndra is the ultimate mid-range hero. Like she really has very few turns. Even her Wrath of Retribution, like super turns, they really don't push beyond 20. You really have to be hitting like Mask, Trigger, maybe Snatches of Go again on the same turn to get to that 30 damage threshold. Whereas for Dash IO and of course Acilio, 30 damage is like, you got to have one of these turns that almost hits that, or else you're not beating decks that are trying to block you out. So I'm not surprised. And I think Dash IO is actually quite difficult of a deck to play in the same way that Gravy is. Yeah. And not big surprise to me that the win rate is so high. Of course, CYK Lionel won a calling on Dash IO. This hero is pretty real. And of course, does make sense that suffers a little bit with the current rise, I want to say, of Earth, though not sure if it's particularly Florian. Now I'm not sure as we look forward to calling Hamburg if we'll see the same number of Florians. Florian particularly was a hero that we knew the Japanese players loved more. Calling Kobe, won by Florian. Florian was just more represented at that calling than the other region callings at the same time anyway. And so we always knew that Florian would be a little bit more represented in Shizuoka. Not positive we're going to see the same thing happen in Hamburg, both because of Florian's kind of like poor performance, and also just if you look at the meta, a lot of these heroes, maybe besides KO, they're not really heroes that Florian wants to play against. Florian does want to play against KO, that's for sure. Yeah, but I'm still not positive how I feel about the Florian versus Verdance. Like it feels I don't really play either of those heroes a lot. It feels like a 90-90 to me. I mean, I've had Florians tell me that it's free. I've had more Verdance players tell me it's free on their side. So I want to lean towards them, but I've been told of like all these things that Florians can do, like intellect penaltying, deny redemption, attacking a dread scythe. Like I can imagine that it's a lot more nuanced than just trying to break it down to these like simple reductions. But I don't know. It's gonna be a problem because when I played Florian, I knew a lot of my games against Verdances. I was like, I don't really know how I can win, but I sure as heck know how I can not lose. And that was so terrifying for me when I was trying to learn Verdance because when Verdance is relying on the Rampant Growth combo, they kind of have to gain life. And if you have the Reaping Blade and you stay a lower life than them, then they can't do the thing. And then it's like, what's going on? Does the Verdance have to hit himself with a Burn Bear? Like, I don't know. So.
I can tell you that the win rate of Florian and the Verdance is actually massively skewed, at least in that one event. We had a 70% win rate for Verdance into Florian.
Okay.
Nuts.
I think that's partially because I'm pretty sure up until Germinate came back, Verdance really could kind of in Swiss. It was really a Swiss matchup that Verdance won in Swiss. And then once you get to top 8, it gets more complicated because the stalemate rules are different. And you just
it's gonna be healthier if your health total's higher.
Yeah, it's just whoever, and that's top 8, but that's different than Swiss. So that strategy wouldn't work in Swiss, and so Verdances would almost always win because the Florian didn't really have a way to do it in time. But then now with Germinate, they have a way to win in Swiss. And I think Verdances probably came to the matchup thinking it would be the same thing, and then got domed by 30 rune chants.
No, sorry, it's reversed.
no.
It's reversed. It's
Yeah,
reversed.
Oh, really?
Verdance won 70%, of the matches in the entire event.
On paper, that's what I would expect. I would expect Verdance to win those matchups. I was just told by some Florian players that they have a good matchup into Verdance.
Well, because the reason I bring that up. The reason I bring that up is because there was definitely a round I was following in the top tables of day 2 where a Florian did beat a Verdance. And I was like, oh, clearly that must have been the trend. And that's what, happened. I guess that was more the outlier.
Yeah, it's this, because you bring up a good point. That is a very valid, that is a Florian matchup choice if you have unlimited time, for sure. Like, right, make your invincible wall, use your recursion card to pull up your defense, wait for them to pop off, and then stuff it, right? And we saw that actually attempt to be happening. I think it was a top 8 of I can't remember which event it was now, but we saw that happening, and I think you were casting it. So definitely. I mean, that's definitely a strategy that.
That was US Nats.
It's US Nats. It's a strategy if you get to the untimed tables, right? That's for sure a strategy.
Poor homie there though. He's a 3 floating guy. He had wrong information about how top 8 worked, and so he played this whole strategy. And then at the table, Majin's like, and then he was like, "But I was." So it was unfortunate.
Unfortunate, but it is a valid strategy if you could execute it in time. Cool. All right, let's keep us a little bit back on track here. So we did see Syndra win it. I'm gonna go ahead and display the matchups on the screen right now, just so people at home can take a look at what their journey really looked like. And I mean, all of these statistics that we've been talking about, the matchups, it actually comes super to a point here, because they ran into a vast majority of the top decks, right? The ones that we're talking about, that Octagon. And they won most of those matchups, right? It was only a little bit of a stumble towards the end with a mirror versus Syndra, which you also kind of highlighted as a unfortunate way to end your tournament run. And then they did lose to Verdance right before top 8. But once they were locked in for top 8, KO victory, Verdance victory, Gravy Bones victory, clean Syndra theoretical counters, right? Or anti-counters, right? So I think Syndra was a great choice for this event.
Syndra's the classic week 1 deck, right?
Yeah.
Ever since Hunted. I mean, not really as much in the immediate high seas meta, but she came out, she did very well early. Everyone forgot about Syndra. Everyone forgets how to block, and people are just. I do think in newer metas, she can attack a lot of things, especially as players are still trying to figure their things out. Players might be trying to keep cards in hand they shouldn't because they're new, or it's a new strategy, or but more than anything, I think part of it is just new meta, new Syndra. People are just gonna gravitate towards the hero. People have stayed on the hero. Podcasts and pundits have said for months that Syndra is bad and you shouldn't play Syndra, and people still play Syndra.
It's crazy.
The deck is very fun. The deck is very flavorful. The deck is super powerful, and you feel when you're doing the thing well. And it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, it surprised me on the weekend. I was calling it kind of the breakout deck because people were not really talking about Syndra in this capacity, but we've seen it since she released. Early on, if people aren't thinking, it's like Kano. You're not thinking about Syndra.
Yeah, and the one word that I was looking to hear is consistency. Syndra is insanely consistent. It is very rare to draw a hand and say, "Oh no, I can't spend my entire hand." At the very least, you're able to pitch. If you have 2 chain enders, you can pitch one of them, throw that dagger for 1. That's not great, but I've played a lot of heroes where that card doesn't get pitched, doesn't get played, doesn't get arsenaled because I can't spend it, I can't use it. I watched particularly a bunch of games where Verdances and Florians were involved, and I thought that I can't remember his name, but the guy who made top 8 as Reinar, he was kind of playing a very interesting strategy against Gordon. Just doing these setup turns where he wouldn't even claw. Claw was free, but why would I claw? I'll just keep this blue in my hand, play the sigil cycles, pass turn, and Gordon with 4 cards in his hand and an arsenal successfully spends 2 of them. So that dynamic is just something that Syndra would never be the case. Syndra will never be able to just say, I can only spend 2 cards when you give me a full grip and let me have all of these cards. And that consistency is really meaningful, especially in competitive play. I mean, it's both the fact that, yeah, the deck can do it, and you have a reputation for being able to spend your hand. So now your opponent is kind of like pressured to play differently, to kind of play to the whims of your deck, so to speak.
Yeah. That's a really interesting take. I like that. Syndra's just a consistent value machine, and that's what she does. And she's a little tricky. She has that 1 or 2 good, really good turns, pushes her slightly above rate, and then she goes back. Dude,
I'm vindicated because the Syndra deck that I liked to play was the Snatch, Throw, Dagger. Like I wanted both of those cards in my Syndra list. I remember playing a bunch of the variants early on, and there were decks that weren't on those cards, 0 blues at all, no Snatch. And I remember when I played without Snatch the first time, I was like, this is just, there's just no way. I've played too much Fi back in the day. Like, I gotta be able to wreck your shit with Snatch.
Yeah.
You know, like.
I definitely think like at least 1 copy of Snatch, but maybe not 3, maybe just 2. 2 seems to be the healthy number, because you'll hate that card when you draw 2 of it with like a lava.
Oh, for sure.
No, totally.
You know what I mean?
But Throw Dagger, like I do feel like, Ancestral Empowerment, Throw Dagger, like she does need those little bit of tricks. Like you can't just predict it. Like the Syndra decks for a while, I feel like were just so tunneled on that consistency and making sure their draconic cards worked so synergistically. Like it did you could just, okay, I don't have to worry about anything. I know that I can just block here and then, then there's the flick, and you can always consider the flick. But if you can go around the flick once or twice with Powerman or for the, it's just
consistency
so strong.
The tension of consistency versus power.
Right.
These are like the 2 things that the 2 dials are constantly tweaking when you're making these Flesh and Blood decks. And I do think that, hey, if you're not winning because you're consistently mediocre, you're going to have to make some changes. You know what I mean? You're going to have to put some power cards in there.
Take some risks.
That require other cards to be good. And that's the only way to win. You got to do it. And so I think there's been a healthier and healthier balance of that as Syndra decks have been refined. And we're really seeing that. This is the 3rd calling win for Syndra this year, and I can't think of another hero that's won 3 callings this year.
Pretty impressive.
Pretty good. Incredible. I mean, but equally important though, the same weekend we had Living Legend, right? And this is now a main point of our journey to Worlds, right? This is something that we have to be prepped for. We have to be paying attention to. We have to have our deck selected. Some high level stats, right? There was a lot of Zens, and a massive amount of Rune Blades. A massive amount of Rune Blades. And we did see that all the way through top 8. I mean, it's not the biggest tournament of all time, right? So the numbers are a little bit skewed. It's a little bit, one player could actually make a pretty big impact on the win rate of a single hero. But top 8 was a Rune Blade fest with some Zens trying to duke it out. And ultimately, we did see the lone Viserai take it down. How are you feeling about Living Legend as a format that you need to be mentally and physically prepared for?
This was a very small battle hardened, 45 people, I believe. The top 8, as you mentioned, was Rune Blades and Ninjas. There was 2 Zen, 2 Ira, and then 4 Rune Blades.
I forgot about Ira. You're right.
2 Chain, a Briar, and a Viserai.
Yeah.
So half and half, literally 50-50. It was go again Ninjas and go again Rune Blades. And 9th place actually was a Starvo. So, still relevant, still there. Yeah. And actually, Starvo has a
Starvo just
matchup.
won. Starvo just recently won the Battle Hardened, right?
Yeah, he won the Chicago ProQuest Plus. Funny enough, the 9th place player was Vespa, but the deck he was piloting was Jacob Clement's Starvo deck, which was the same Starvo deck that Michael Jacuzzi, well, I call him Jacuzzi, it's Yasher, or I call him Jacuzzi. You guys should probably know him. He also was piloting Jacob Clement's Starvo deck when he won the ProQuest Plus, beating Brody in Chicago. So Starvo's not out yet, and I think maybe if we had one more round, Vespa maybe could have taken down one of these heroes and maybe squeaked in a Starvo into the top 8. But I still think this top 8 of being 4 Ninjas, 4 Rune Blades does kind of tell a pretty good story of what I feel about Living Legend right now. which is that the time of Ice and Guardian and Illusionist
Right.
is kind of not here right now.
Right.
Decks are outputting so much damage in this format. This is a format where Art of War is still legal, of course. This is a format where Nova was on cash-in plus Crown of Dominion. This is a format where Zen is legal.
Yeah.
Right? And he's able to play Art of War, and
Yeah.
and his hat is still the one that makes it, draws him a cheese. So it's not a meta for heroes that want to sit around and play more than 4 or 5 turns reasonably.
Yeah.
Ira's the only one hero that is able to slow down games, and Ira's damage output is still extremely high.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's just needle, go again thing into hope this erase face buys me the next turn.
Yeah.
So I do expect players to look into this data and hopefully kind of utilize it, because I do think it's quite a fast meta. I mean, this is not too big of a surprise, right? Living Legend features kind of the more powerful things that we've had in the history of Flesh and Blood.
Yeah.
We've nerfed Starvo quite a few times.
Like a
and
lot.
with that, yeah. Quite a lot, yeah.
Like
At
a
least
lot.
it's not Stalagmite.
Yeah.
Stalagmite is the one thing keeping him still relevant, in my
Yeah.
opinion, because without it, like, the Zen matchup is impossible.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can't really beat Briar ever. It's kind of an interesting time, because this is what people were calling Flesh and Blood right when Tales of Aria came out, right? Flesh and Rune Blood.
Fresh
Is
and
what a lot of people were calling it.
Rune Blade.
But yeah, I do think this is kind of it's actually a pretty good representation of what the meta kind of looks like right now. I do think maybe one Starvo being in the top 8 would make it feel more accurate to me, at least.
Sure. Yeah.
And in terms of just talking about the Rune Blades themselves, I do believe that in the 3 main ones that were there, of course, was Viserai, Briar, and Chain. And I do think that in terms of what beat the triangle of how they beat each other, Viserai is just faster than Chain. Unfortunately, doesn't matter what flavor of chain you are. If you're Runegate chain, if you're what are we calling it now? Boomer chain, traditional chain, Minnowism and Belittle chain. Minnowism Belittle chain has a higher chance of kind of getting there, but Runegate chain usually needs. It's kind of funny to say this. He needs a second shackle.
Yeah, he needs 2
really become a real hero
to turn on,
And if you go second against Viserai, and Viserai goes first, and makes some rune chance first turn, your first turn as chained going second is rarely a sexy turn. So sometimes you just don't really get that third. You don't get to live that long. I mean, Viserai, you make a bunch of rune chance. Next turn, you make some Mordred, Malefics, Skeleta, Sonata, draw a bunch of cards. Opponent just doesn't cash in. You really don't live that many turns as chain. So Viserai, I've always felt has been a little bit faster than chain, and that was before Malefics existed. Now with Malefics, it's kind of, you're just a really fast deck. If you draw the wrong half of your deck, you're also a very slow deck, of course. But I do think that Briar has the highest of highest ceilings. You got the turn 0 Channel Mount Heroic, turn 1, maybe another Channel Mount Heroic, Force of Nature, and just after that, the race is on. Like you can just go infinite because you're just drawing cards every single attack. Chain usually does beat out Briar, though. In my experience, your Briar just often is not able to actually kill you in that 2-3 turn window. And the moment you get to turn 4, turn 5, those shackles start. You become an Intellect 5 hero, Intellect 6 hero, and you really are able to start kind of playing the game with Briar. And so that's kind of like the mini triangle, but of that triangle is pretty weak, because when I say that Briar has a chance against Viserai, it's not like a favored matchup by any chance. It just, you might feel a little bit better as Briar than being chain against Viserai. But of those 3, I think Viserai does come out the top, and I think Nova did a really good job kind of identifying that and of course, winning yet another LL battle card. The second one. He won with a traditional chain at the last event, which I can't remember the name of. But that was kind of just a good meta call too, when people were playing Runegate chain and there were a lot of Starvos still. Boomer chain still has those explosive turns, is slightly more consistent, I would say, than the Runegate version, and is just kind of a deck that we write off too easily. I feel every time there's a new meta. Chain is he's been a meta since he's been printed. So.
It's crazy, dude. He's such a powerful hero ability. It's insane.
What's the Dio? How did Dio do?
Dio did abysmally.
Really?
There was only, I'm gonna say there was probably only one player here because there's only 6 matches recorded, but there's 16.67% win rate.
Because I've in just the anecdotal games that I've played, Dio can just run over other aggro decks in this format. Just absolutely run them over with boom grenades, system reset. Like you really, I played a couple of games just as Briar, and I was like, well, I can't win. Like if I don't see the CMH immediately, I am just eating shit. Like like
so. Dio's for me is the funniest. Like, obviously she's a mechanologist, but in terms of how she actually plays, she is a Runeblade ninja.
Right.
She is all physical damage, so she doesn't have that arcane element, but she plays non-attack actions that are extremely powerful. All those items that she plays for free, insane. High Octane, insane. Cerebellum, insane. She's actually, to me, I would expect her to win more games of LL than Zen, Ira, Briar. And basically, she's a little bit tied to me with Chain. And she's more like on Vizorai's power level. I wanna highlight a few things though about Vizorai, of course, winning this. In this top 8 breakdown of 4 ninjas and 4 Runeblades, as Vizorai, you'd be feasting. You'd be excited. You'd be stoked. It's when you start seeing heroes like Icelander.
Right.
As a Vizorai player, you're like, I don't really want to play against that guy. I don't really want to play against people giving me frostbites because Vizorai hands are quite fragile. You take one Winter's Bite is like a 1 card like 7 usually against the really good Vizorai hands, and you just don't want to do that. You want to be playing against other heroes that are just saying send me the bill. So
and there wasn't one here, mind you. Right?
So there was not one in the top 8. That's why I mentioned that Vespa got 9th with Jacob Clements' Starvo deck, because that really could have changed some of the dynamics of the top 8.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny to watch, like, from your perspective, you have a team, you're structured, you've got, accolades, right? And you're talking about it, and the data is just like matching up almost perfectly, right? There's a imaginary line, like, right, Briar actually kind of is falling a little bit out of the win rate vacuum that is the rest of the decks up there. But Briar is like this imaginary line, and right below Briar is like Starvo at 44% win rate. And then everybody else is sub 40. So your 2 illusionists or 3 illusionists are all sitting in that 40% range. Everybody else is toast after that. Yeah. It's so funny.
If I were playing pretty much every illusionist that's legal in that format, and I saw this top 8, and I was one of the members, I would be like, I don't want to play against anyone.
Yep. Gonna go home, pack your cards up.
Yeah.
All right. So LL, prepare. Looks like it's going to be Rune Blades. Looks like it's going to be ninjas. Maybe some Starvo. Maybe an Icelander.
And Rune Blade Ninja.
Yeah, and Rune Dash IO. We didn't really get to see anybody pilot the Dash IO in that tournament. They were too busy, absolutely dumpstering the calling. I
guess so. Yeah, CYK was still playing the calling.
They almost all made day 2. So they were too busy to play playing CC to jump over. All right, so we have a long road left ahead of us, quite a few events before we hit Worlds, and the ones that I'm really going to be paying attention to off the top of my head, you guys can give me your insights as well, as a better player than me, and Sam, who's so connected to the competitive environments, right? But Hamburg, EU meta, I'm really interested to see how they shake things up post Super Slam. Sydney will be, I think, our final event, our final glimpse at the meta, maybe, at least at a calling level.
Final calling,
final calling. Yeah. And then, of course, ProQuest season. Will KO LL or not? And that, of course, is going to shake up the meta significantly if that happens. One less hero to worry about. And all the brutes will go with it when the claws are gone, if that happens. So you won't have to worry about brute anymore at all. What are you guys' take on these last final events? What are you paying attention to? Is LL there for you? What's going on?
There's a lot of events. I mean, look at this page. This is just October and November. It's like
crazy.
We're living in a great time period if you like playing competitive Flesh and Blood, and maybe if you're willing to do a little bit of traveling. And
a lot of money, too. $20K per calling right there, up for grabs for the people in those tournaments. A lot of money.
What we don't have is an American calling during this time.
That's crazy.
So we won't be able to kind of get a more aggregate image of what the American meta looks like when Worlds is in America. So that will be kind of an interesting dynamic. You're gonna have to try to piece it together from some of the US based battle hardens and just getting an overall feel for the EU and Australian callings.
Yeah.
These callings are both, of course, CC, but we have a couple of standalone battle hardens, and both of these CC callings have standalone battle hardens, and that's a lot of battle hardens. Like we haven't had this many Living Legend battle hardens where Starve was legal. I mean, the last time we had this many, Starve was just legal in CC. So it's going to be an interesting time. I am excited to see just kind of the ups and downs of the Earth talents during this time period, because it is kind of Earth has become this mid-range king, this like the floor king. Like it has the highest of highest floors, but the ceiling isn't that high. And so when Earth is doing well, we're often seeing these metas that are, a little bit more mid-rangey, a little bit more grindy. Games are lasting way more than 9 turns. 9 turns is usually my litmus for how fast a meta is in CC. And right now we're definitely in the pushing 11 plus average turns played.
It's really interesting perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Funny enough, by the way, the Syndra versus Gravy games, my average turn played is like 13 plus.
That's crazy.
My average games against Syndra, because if the game is close, it always becomes this like desperate clawing at the very end where maybe I have a Rigor Mortis or a Sawbones, and the Syndra just can't kill it, because if they commit 1 card to that guy, then they can't commit enough cards to me to take enough cards from me so that I can't take 2 cards. And it just becomes, and I think we did see that in the semis with Justin playing, going back to calling Shizuoka just for a quick second, but it's just this grind, and a lot of the games become this grind. And I think the cool thing about these grindy games is you have many turns to make many decisions, much more than like last year this time.
Yeah.
I played a game against Zen. I attacked foolishly on the first turn of my game. They blocked their hat and shoes, and I did not get to go to my next turn.
Yeah, you're dead.
I did not.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I drew my second hand of the game. I put all of my cards down, including all of my equipment, and my opponent still had 7 cards in their hand, and then I died. So we're living in a much different time right now, and the Earth talent is my, maybe not canary in the gold mine, but just my litmus test for how well can kind of a mid-rangey deck do in the current format. I think we're going to see a lot of Verdances, particularly in Hamburg. We saw Verdance win both standalone battle hardens. So, the Paris battle harden that just occurred this past weekend was actually a team battle harden. But Verdance and Florian were both on the winning team, as well as Syndra. And of course, the opposing team did have that reviled KO. But we also saw in Guadalajara, the battle harden this past weekend, won by Sneep. Yeah, exactly. And Verdance in general just has been performing, of course, made the semis at Shizuoka, and it is a hero that I think we're going to see just a bunch more of. We're going to see this triangle, in my opinion, of Syndra, Verdance, Gravy. They're going to be paired against each other a bunch. It's going to be interesting to see how casters or how Ethan and the team choose whether or not to put those games on stream or put some other games. Because there's going to be a lot of those 3 heroes in particular facing each other. And it's going to be cool because we have Hamburg, and then we have this whole ProQuest season where players really get to, get almost a more granular feel of the meta. And then Sydney will be kind of that recap. All right, what did you guys learn during ProQuest season?
Yeah, of course.
And of course, just that weekend right before Worlds, we have that back-to-back Battle Hardened weekend of Rochester and Edinburgh. And I think that might, give people one last glimpse of what the meta looks like. And notably, those 2 Battle Hardens will have there'll be post-ban lists, because there'll be that one more ban list right before, right after, I guess, Sydney and Tacoma on the 3rd. And that will be the Battle Harden that, players might keep some of their spice at home or test out some new things, or some new sparks start flying because of the new ban list. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah. And if KO does leave, then anything that was being eaten by that deck can finally show up. It's going to be really interesting, especially if there's a BNR announcement mixed in there, not just Mana KO. That'll be a shakeup. People are gonna have to be paying attention. And again, you guys,
Yeah.
ProQuest season, go get your gold
Yeah.
foils. Go get your cash. Quite a bit on
Go
the
get your
table.
name on that living legend leaderboard.
Do
You don't
it.
get your name in there.
Yeah, you gotta be
Some glory.
immortalized. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. And of course, the main point of our conversation today, we got World Championships, and it is a big shakeup this time around. We've kind of already hinted at it several times with Living Legend being a part of it. But Sam, if you wouldn't mind, could you break down what makes this World Championship so much different than the last couple of years?
I would be happy to. So, firstly, given that we're in Philadelphia, Philly cheesesteaks to all the competitors. You sit down, you get playmat, sleeves, and a bunch of fucking
some cheese.
Yeah, like the spray cheese.
Yeah, dude.
No, man, we got best of 3, top 8, Living Legend and CC, and it's going to be really, really cool. I mean, it's something that I've always wondered what it would be like.
Yeah.
It's something that I've always imagined could be cool to experiment with, and I think this is a cool way to start. But for the top 8, basically the higher seed will sit down and they will decide either are we playing CC or Living Legend, or they can defer the choice. But if they defer, they get to pick first or second, and the person who doesn't pick format picks first or second.
This is crazy.
And then the next game, because there's always at least 2 games, whoever didn't pick format gets the same choice. Well, no, that's not true. No, that's not true. Next game, you always play the other format. So if for game 1, me and Michael are playing because I'm having, the greatest weekend of my entire adult life. And I'm just, kicking ass in Worlds. I
choose and casting at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just, I'm operating on a level unbeknownst currently to our species. I choose CC. Next game, we have to play LL. And then if we go to a game 3, the loser of game 2 gets the same choice from game 1. Either they pick format or they pick first or second. And so you're going to have, theoretically, in this top 8, you're going to have a game 3 to determine, are you moving to the semifinals? Are you moving to the finals? Do you win the World Championships?
The pressure,
and dude, the thing that's so exciting about it is, I would say in Flesh and Blood, I mean, I think this is a universal experience by competitive players at all levels, but especially players that like really lock in and take it really seriously. And even honestly at the Armory, you play against a player or a deck. At the end of that game, you're like, I know what I would have done differently. Yeah. I know where I lost that game. And sometimes it's, I know now, I understand this person's deck a lot better. And sometimes it's like, I know how you play now.
Yeah.
And like people play very differently. And a lot of the best players are really good at understanding, at reading another player's tendencies very quickly and being like, most of the time, I respect the pummel, but you're not going to pummel me because you're too scared of the D-react or whatever it is, right? So like, I'm really curious to see, let's say we go back to CC for game 3, if the loser or the winner is able to make adjustments based on having played the matchup and the opponent already in a high pressure top 8 situation. I think you're just going to potentially have some all-timer moments of competitive FAB.
Oh yeah, it's going to be nuts. It's going to be nuts.
At the very least, we'll have double the number of games being played. So double the number of opportunities for these epic moments, these memorable top deck finishes. I think it will be really cool. I think this is like, I've never done best of 3, and the way that the best of 3 rules are written right now that Sam was eloquently telling us, I think there's some gamesmanship that can be done. And it completely depends on the matchup, right? Like you'll know what your opponent's playing, you'll know what their Living Legend deck is, and you'll discuss with some friends, some teammates, whatever, on what's the the highest EV play that you can do. And I think that thinking about these things it's like unlocked a part of my brain that I never thought I would use. And I think that's really cool. And I think even the discussions that people are going to have about why so-and-so picked to go this format first, or pick to defer and then choose to go first or second. I think that's really cool. I think it's going to make for some, because if you defer, you also need to have a plan for if you're playing CC or LL if you want to go for
Right.
a second. So you kind of have a lot of thinking and a lot of if then statements and clauses, and I think it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be work. It's gonna be a lot more some more mental work. But if you make top 8, hopefully you're gonna have some guys who are just batting for you and supporting you.
Yeah, of course.
I like to call them the sandwich bringers. You know,
Yeah.
can I get you a bottle of water?
Yeah.
Kind of guys. Like those are the glue guys for most teams, right?
The goats, dude.
It's the racer. It's in a NASCAR race. All the people that come in, they change the tire. You're just getting like the Gatorade bottle, like
yeah.
I'm also, dude. What's so cool about it as well is like, you know, you're gonna have all. Well, I shouldn't say decisively what the protocol and the procedure is going to be for, because I don't actually. I think it's been determined, but I'm waiting to have the full thing. But like, I think there's a good chance you're going to have to make the call. I think almost for sure you're making the call about your quarterfinal game, first seed, the night before, so that the players get all night to prepare. You don't want to show up and then you get 15 minutes right beforehand. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then between quarters and semis, you probably are going to have between 15 minutes and an hour of prep.
Right.
Way different than you've had all night. Yeah, dude. Like, there's going to be a situation where a quarterfinals player, you're going to say, all right, congratulations on your win. In 15 minutes, please tell me what the first format is. And you have to go make the call and then make a game plan in 15 minutes. You know, like the protocol is not set in stone, but there's going to be unique situations and unique.
That's all preppable. That's all preppable the night before.
Yeah,
because you'll see the bracket, so you'll know
exactly. So
if
you can
we
be
make
like,
it to the semis, and if that person wins, then this is what we do. If that person wins, this is what we do. And if we make the finals, and
dude, it's so sick. That's so fun.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Your seat placement also matters so much more than normal, because like it's not uncommon when you're locked in for top 8 already. You're planning on if you want to win or lose your final game, depending on like the theoretical breakdown of the brackets. You know, you're trying to pair in or like if whatever. But here you get to decide what format you're playing. Right. And if you know you're matching an X person, your LL deck counters theirs, but your CC deck is not good into theirs. You're making a very different decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a really good point that you bring up, because you could be 8th seed. And normally when I'm 8th seed, I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm never going to be able to decide. But you still have so many decisions to make because, well, you don't know if you're going to make a decision, to be honest, right? Like, you're going to go into every single one of your rounds and be like, so what would you like to do?
How do you want to get me?
Yeah. They'll be like, I'll let you choose the format. Why don't you go first or go second? And you look at your 2 aggro decks and you're like, ooh, that seems really smart. Seems like you'll, do you want to play this aggro mirror where you get to choose to go second, or this aggro mirror where you get to choose to go second? You know? So I think that it does make for some interesting decisions, especially if you have kind of like 2 different style of decks, like your CC decks maybe more aggressive, more proactive, and your LL decks more defensive, or vice versa. I think that'd be kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's so much depth here. I can't wait to watch it. Also, coverage challenges this year is going to be very interesting. That's a lot of games, guys. That's a lot of games. It's gonna be fun.
It's not a lot of games, and a lot of like Living Legend is way more taxing, in my opinion. Right? Like you're gonna have to know. People are gonna play cards you've never seen before. This is gonna happen, especially if they're playing some of the heroes that are not, the big 3 or the big 4 that end up happening in Living Legend.
Something we didn't talk about in the LL segment that I think is super still relevant is just like, this is among the most rife tier 4 plus tournaments we've seen in a long time, where someone could bring the deck that breaks the format. Someone could find some crazy LL deck that just no one is ready for. And like, it's harder to do that these days in CC. It's way more tested. You have way less options, but someone could show up with, the equivalent of a berserk KO, if that, like something that is not expected and is just like so gas. And then all of a sudden you were looking at that person in top 8 and you're like, we can't go to LL. They found the deck, dude. So like, that's something I don't necessarily think it's going to happen, but I do think it could. And I think that's something like might be some teams that just decide, listen, we're going to put in the hours to get something crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
That would be so cool.
That
would be so cool.
So cool. And it's, I mean, another hype thing about Worlds is like player of the year is coming down to a photo finish,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah,
we're
big
looking at
time.
people. I mean, Brody Spurlock and Jacob, right? They are neck and neck right now, and there's quite a few events left in the year, and then of course, like a significant amount of points will come to the winner of Worlds, right? Like it's a big deal. Player of the year is also on the table right here, same event, same championship. It's crazy. Yep. And it might not even be related to who wins Worlds, right? Like it could, could be done. Unfortunately, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
Lots of points at Worlds. It's funny. Worlds is just 2 callings in a sandwich.
Yeah.
It's like they're all the same numbers, except they're just all doubled from a calling. It's I don't know how people feel about maybe players who win, like Pablo winning a Pro Tour. If he wins Worlds right now, he will not be Player of the Year.
Yeah. He'll be Player of the Year in our hearts, but.
Right, he'll be the goat of goats, right?
Yeah.
Like people are like, Michael Hamilton's won World, and but if Pablo wins Worlds here, I think to me he would be the undisputed goat.
Oh, for sure, also,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Also, he's pretty. He's close already. He's close already.
Right.
Yeah, guys are free.
But yeah, I think there's so many points at stake.
Yeah.
And the fact that Jacob, who's just been on a tear, like this has been one of his worst callings this summer, and he made top 16.
Yeah.
Right? Like legitimately, one of the worst performances for him this entire summer, and he made top 16.
Rough.
Because he didn't make top 8, and that's just rough for him. That's so rough for him.
Guy's taking a big downhill turn here, getting only 16.
And Michael Hamilton too he made top 8 at Pro Tour Singapore. He doesn't show up as many events as Jacob, Brody, and I, but the ones he goes to, I mean, he did not make day 2 at calling Copenhagen this year, and it was the first time ever in his life that he's not made day 2 at a Flesh and Blood event.
Insane.
So before this, his top 8 percentage was like
me and him are the same for
66%. Like 2 out of every 3 callings he has been to. Before Copenhagen, it's not about making day 2, it's about making top 8 for him. Like his win rate's like a third. Like every third calling he goes to, he wins. Like these are some crazy numbers, and lots of World Tour points accrued from the calling circuit. But man, Jacob and Brody, it's becoming this cool story, right? Like if you had told me 3 months ago, before the summer started, that Jacob would be neck and neck with Brody, I mean that's crazy. Like, I don't think anyone would have believed you.
They're such boys too, which is great.
Yeah,
they're like the 2 little peas in a pod, like going around all the tournaments, and then every time a tournament ends, I just see them like in the lobby, and Jacob has no shoes on, and they're like and they're like playing the Blood on the Clock Tower.
Yeah. Brody's like laying on the floor.
Yeah,
he's sleepy, but he still wants to be part of the Blood on the Clock Tower game. Yeah, totally. I've seen this happen all the time.
I know.
All right. I mean, I guess with that, like that, that's our road right now. That's what we're all focusing on. We're watching it all unfold in real time. I can't wait. But let's go with some predictions. All right. Okay. What hero do you think is gonna win Worlds? We'll do, I guess, LL and CC. I don't know. Yeah, give me your best guesses. I guess I can go first. Okay. I'm gonna put my money on. I'm feeling Chain. I feel like Chain players for LL, they're just freaks. They know way too much math. They're always so good at the game. I think Chain's just super reliable. And I'm gonna go left field, I guess, maybe a little bit. I'm gonna not really. I'm gonna go with Gravy. I think you give Gravy players enough time. It's a brand new set. You give Gravy players, Illusionist players, the same thing, enough time. They adapt and they overcome almost always, right? I mean, Gravy got a top finish directly after getting his deck nerfed into the floor, and he's still there.
Yeah. I think I'm so similar in terms of my predictions. Okay. I'm on Team Gravy. I've been playing Gravy. Sure. I think he's not as bad as I initially thought after the bans. Mm-hmm. In some ways, he feels more robust.
Interesting.
We've taken out 6 of these cards from our deck that block 2, but more than just block 2. These cards force us in certain play patterns.
Right.
Like when I draw a red Tipple with an ally, I don't just have to keep those 2 cards in my hand. I got to keep a resource card in my hand too. Right. And now my decision making with this hand has become much less modular. I can only block with one card at max with this hand. And if that last card is also a Conquer, I really don't want to block at all. Like, you gotta make me block with this hand. So it's almost become more robust of a deck. The power level's a little bit lower.
Sure.
But on the average hand-to-hand, he still has just plays like Attack of Murderous Rabble, play Sawbones from Arsenal, attack with that. And the numbers on that it's just like 3 or 4 points better than what any other hero in this game can do. And you played a blue and a yellow.
Right.
Like in terms of consistency, in terms of his resources, I can see him winning Worlds.
Yeah.
In terms of LL, gosh, it's such a crapshoot. But if I were to put money on it right now, I would put money on Viserai for the same reasons I talked about earlier. Just a little bit faster than Chain on average.
Sure.
And this format right now, at least, has been a much faster format than I've ever played in my life. I've lost games faster. Like I lost the game against Viserai almost on turn 1 because they had the hand. They were like, I don't know, let's just see what happens. We played this, play it was like Mordred, Storming, Gloomveil. Sorry, Cashin first, 5 cards now. Mordred, Gloomveil, Double Revel, Cracked Chess, Sonata. Drew 6 more cards, and then I was like, I have no more cards left, homie. And then he's like, and then do this, 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 and I'm like, okay, I'm at 8. My turn. He's like, yeah, but I lose both of my rune chants because I have the Rebels trigger. I'm like, oh yeah, I needed that. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
So it's just kind of a format that's it's harder to make predictions, but if I were to put my money on it, I think Nova really, really captured the essence of LL pretty well, and I think we're going to see more of Viserais coming up.
Cool.
Right. What about you, Sam?
I mean, listen, I think unless proven otherwise, it is hard to give any reason in good faith why Gravy should not be the pick to win, given that it is such a strong deck and the type of players that play it at the highest level are just the best ones.
That's true.
So like all the best players play the deck that might be the best deck. It's hard to see why that deck wouldn't be the favorite to win. Do I think it's like the absolute best deck? Maybe I do. But
perhaps.
Maybe I do. But I also think if you look back at the last 2 Worlds, they were not what people expected to win.
Sure.
People did not expect Count Your Blessings Enigma to win. There were still people, was that deck real was the question, right? Like, people, there's a Charles Dunn tweet, but like a lot of people didn't believe in Count Your Blessings Enigma going into Worlds. They just didn't. You go back to 2023, Fi won Worlds.
Right.
And Fi literally hasn't won anything else since.
Ever.
And like that was insane, right? And no one expected that. So I think you could also give a reasonable take that we don't know what's going to win Worlds because history has shown us that it might be something somebody finds or a player that's just having the weekend. So
if I had to pick a hero that's not been talked about before, I would put my money on Pallades as my dark horse win.
That's a spicy take.
LL though, I'm picking Dio. You guys are sleeping on Dio. You guys are sleeping on Dio. Dio's insane in LL.
I agree.
Yeah. If we're gonna go dark horse, I would put. I mean, Verdance isn't really a dark horse, but I'd probably go Dio as a dark horse, just because of the win rates. And if you have one of those, like one of those one trick super nuts. Gonna play it in LL and CC Dio players, you know what I mean? They're stacked to the teeth with the reps. They've got it. I think
blinked out deck completely.
Yeah,
there's something to that too. There's totally something to like my brain has to change when I get my crazy cards in, but like if you're able to just lock in on the Dio thing. All weekend. I mean, like Hamilton, dude. What was it? It was like 20 rounds of Icelander.
He literally did it.
He played Icelander, CC, Blitz, and Draft. Both drafts. So he was just like. There's totally something to
for sure.
Brain just locking in on a specific play pattern, specific strategy and style, and like I think that's a totally good point. You might have somebody that just decides, all right. I'm bringing a total of like 95 cards, and out of that, I will have a CC and an LL deck, and I'm just going to beat people in the face with boom grenades.
Yeah.
If I had to put money on like you can only play one hero, that would be the one hero. So that makes sense.
That's funny.
You get 2 prize cards and it's both Dio.
be so sick.
Oh, you can sell one and keep the other one?
Yeah.
I
So
guess.
sick.
You'd still have a monopoly, so I guess that's, you could literally burn one, Kaiba style. And,
Oh my god. Yeah. There's only room for one of these in the world.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I think that's it, guys. I mean, thank you so
Okay.
much for coming on the channel. Unless we got any closing thoughts here, like it's just grind time. It's time to
Grind
prepare
time,
for
baby.
Worlds. Sam and I are probably going to be grinding on the coverage side a little bit for the next couple months. I've got a lot of prep to do. This is a brand new format. It's a brand new setup for top 8, and we can't wait to bring it to you guys at home to watch. All right. But thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good day, everybody. Bye.